stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's jump into the agenda here. Item 2, approval of the minutes of the regular City Council meeting on February 11th, 2025. I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Item 3, adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes or corrections, amendments to our agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. Item 4, consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to adopt and approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Item 5, visitors and presentations. We have nothing scheduled. Item 6A, under public hearings, public dog beach operations at Matoska Park. Mr. Coffey, whenever you're ready.
All right, Mayor, members of the council, I will start by giving a brief history of the dog beach operations at Matoska Park, and then a member of our Parks Commission is available following the presentation. If you'd like him to come up and speak, that would be Brian Belisle. So I will start with, again, just a brief history just to get us to where we're at today. So back in 2007, City Council made some changes to the to allow off-leash dog exercise areas. Some ordinances had to be changed in order to get the uses to comply, primarily with Matoska Park, allowing those that use to be adjacent to the water and in the beach. It also included Lakewood Hills Park and Varney Lake Park for the open area dog exercise areas. It's pretty quiet until 2016, and then some public concerns regarding Dog Beach are heard. 2007 to 2016, the lake level went quite down, so different uses of the lake than traditionally had been seen, so pretty quiet during that time frame. In 2017, the Parks Advisory Commission was requested a review, and they came back with a recommend to closure recommendation. Council did, however, keep the dog beach open with some provisions. So they included the having a current dog license, remaining leased with a 30-foot maximum, signs and things to better define the area. They put some buoys up. And then they put some dog waste stations. Users must clean up after themselves, and then regulations posted. So there were signs posted at the beach that listed all of the things that users needed to comply with. They also asked that it be reviewed after the improvements are in place. So it was in place primarily during the 2017 season. In the 2018, council reviewed it and again kept the dog beach open. There was a few years where kind of status quo. In 2021, again, public concerns were heard regarding the dog beach. Council asked Parks Advisory Commission to review the operations. They made regular visits, approached 100 visits down at the dog beach different times of the day. Reviewed different things and recommended keeping the dog beach open with some additional provisions, again making progress towards helping users to comply. Again, some improved signage. The boards that were down there were felt to be very complex, very wordy, took you a few minutes to sit there and read. So Parks Commission had recommended putting some easy to read signs, keep your dog leashed, pick up after yourself, things like that. Also, permanent fencing was installed. So prior to that, just kind of some temporary orange construction fence was used to separate the 7th Street swim area with the dog beach. So permanent chain link fence was installed as that barrier, kept locked other than for park staff so that people weren't leaving the gates open. It extended up the hill a distance to use the hill that goes up to the Lake Avenue Trail and Lake Avenue as a natural barrier. We also installed gates at the top of the stairs to both the dog beach and swim dock areas to prevent dogs from having the ability to either go down the stairs from the Lake Avenue Trail to the swim area, or dogs from the dog swim area to go into the beach area. We also found improved buoys. There are much larger diameter buoys that spin real easy, that dogs, that our research showed that dogs do not like. They won't swim under buoys, and they had too big, and the spacing was too close for them to go over them. Continue the existing 30-foot dog beach rule, and then continue to maintain the bag stations. And then it was also requested, just kind of as a housekeeping measure, to add no fishing on the swim dock. There was some issues there that we had heard at that same time. So these are just kind of a quick map of the improvement. So we extended those improved buoys, put that chain link fence up and the gates. Then in 24, we were asked again or Parks Advisory Commission was again asked to review the operations, how those improvements had worked through the 23 season and then through the 24 season as well. We did one of the questions that kept surfacing was, what is the water quality at the dog beach? So at least over the last 4 years, we've been regularly testing and saving those tests for both Memorial Beach as well as the Dog Beach 7th Street swim area. This is 2024's testing. As you can see, it's based on the standards of Minnesota Department of Health. The Dog Beach was well below limits. I will note that again, not due to dogs or primarily waterfowl, and the kind of the shallower area where the Memorial Beach is, that some of those numbers did exceed recommended closure operations. So we had one closure as well as one advisory, swim advisory in the Memorial Beach. We also were asked to review police calls. So in addition to regular police patrol down at the dog beach, they stopped down there and again, over the years had gotten a number of calls. So the official calls that were logged between June 1st and September 12th, there was 10 calls total. One lost dog that the police that was brought to the police department, one barking complaint, and then there were 8 dogs at large, meaning that they were dogs off leash. So primarily due to the 30-foot rule at the dog beach that is posted. Parks Commission again reviewed all of those things. Each member did a number of visits, and as fit into their schedules. They visited during weekends, evenings, daytime. Tried to get all hours of the day and all days of the week covered. So a few things that came to note was as the police began to get calls on the leash rules and the dogs being off leash. Come to find out, the city's code conflicts with that 30-foot rule. Even though that was a recommendation by council, the ordinance still requires, or actually allows in designated areas, pets to be off leash in those designated areas. So it's conflicting, so they weren't able to issue citations in those cases because the ordinance rules over that. So after reviewing that, Parks Commission and interviewing users of the beach and interviewing interactions at the beach actually recommend that the ordinance be changed to the no leash requirement at the dog beach versus the 30-foot rule that is posted. Also, just to better define the area, add signage entering, exit the dog beach area. That was a request of the police to, once we get everything into compliance, that they're able to better administer the city's ordinances. So it's clearly defining that area. Parks Commission considered fencing the south side, but didn't see a ton of violations on that side of things. However, it could be done if council were to wish. They also recommended that potentially extending the buoys, so we have 100 feet of the improved buoys seem to work very well from our observation staff and the Parks Commission. But as kind of a safety measure with fluctuating water levels, we could add another 50 feet to the end of the existing buoys to help define that better. And then the commission also, a new position that is recommended is the lakeshore seasonal CSOs that would be focused on the city's lakeshore along Lake Avenue, basically from all along the lakeshore that the city owns. So we have a number of different parks, the marina, the beach, Matoska launch area, so just kind of enforcing all of the rules along the lakeshore. So the commission does support that if council moves forward with those positions. So again, the improvements pretty basic, that the Parks Commission is just extending those buoys out again another 50 feet just to get out a little bit past the dock. I will note on this air photo, this is a current air photo, we did, just due to the lake levels, we used every section of dock that we could to maintain that swim dock. It is the wide dock that's typically south of the Dog Beach area, just not to confuse anybody in the audience that's wondering where this is at, but this was just kind of something that we had to put together in 2024 to keep that swim dock available. So tonight, staff would recommend, as the letter states, to hold a public hearing. Again, council requests that no action be presented tonight, and then direct staff to bring a recommendation for consideration of the council on March 11th. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or Mr. Belisle is available as a representative of the Parks Commission.
Why don't we hear from the Parks Commission, Mr. Belisle, if you're ready and available?
I'd like to say good evening, Mayor, council members.
Good evening.
Thanks for this opportunity. One thing I'd like to do is mention our Park Commission members. We spent a lot of time, not just this issue, but visiting parks and just overall trying to make the park system as good as we can. But members of our Park Commission are Victoria Bean, Mark Cermak, Anastasia Davis, Ginny Davis, Bill Ganslin, Mike Shepard. Bill's on vacation, Mike is working, and Anastasia is ill, but we do have Victoria, Mark, and Ginny. So if they wouldn't mind standing so people know kind of who they are, those are our additional representatives. So. Kind of going over the notes, and Paul covered an awful lot, and he did a good job with the history. When I'm going back to, I wasn't a Parks Commission member going back to 2016. We maybe had one member who was a member of the commission at that time. That I'm not sure. So I think most of our current commission members have been on board since 2020 approximately. So as I'm going through the history, I'm going back to 2022. And I went through all minutes and tried to compile this. I think we had roughly 2 residents that requested closing the beach or relocating the beach. And so after that conversation, the Parks Commission, Advisory Commission had numerous conversations, and we decided we're going to visit the actual dog beach. And we did this independently. It wasn't as a group. We did this independently. And we total up about 70 visits, made notes, and that information has all been documented. It went back to 2023. I think that at that point the council kind of reviewed it and voted to keep the dog beach open. 2024, we needed to readdress the issue. City Manager Crawford suggested that we make some additional site visits, which we did. And again, we had some numerous conversations at our commission meetings. So at that time we had, for 2024, we did about 30 visits. So over the last 2 years, we've done about 100 independent documented visits. So just going over our observations, compiling the notes, we've really seen few problems at the dog beach. There are dogs off the leash. Usually if they're off the leash, they're in the water, and understanding that policy may change. We didn't really experience a lot of barking. I'm not saying there was no barking, but we felt it was minimal and usually wasn't for a very extended period of time. We didn't experience any aggressive dog behavior. And actually went back, this goes back maybe to 2022. I had a conversation, or actually worked kind of directly, indirectly with the city manager. The police chief at that time gathered some information as far as dog problems. And I think there was one dog biting incident, but it did not happen on the beach, it happened on the trail. So I'm not aware of any dog biting incidences. The beach area overall is very clean. Not saying that there isn't occasionally a bag left. When I inspected it this year or last year, I did notice a bag or two that were left, and I'm thinking it was more accidental. I think overall the dog owners are very careful and respectful of the beach. So we did not really see many dogs cross the buoy. Because that's a spin barrier, it makes it difficult for a dog to actually cross the buoy. I'm not saying they never cross it, but very, very limited, and I think the buoy, spinning buoy, has really assisted very well in keeping dogs in that contained beach area. So basically, the next point would be the Parks Commission voted 7-0 in favor of keeping the dog beach open in 2022. We voted 7-0 recommending to the council to keep the dog beach open in 2024. Paul did a nice job as far as recommending changes. I think one that would help us is removing the leash requirement, because there was really too many police calls that were made pertaining to dogs off leash, and it didn't match up with our code. And it's not the best use of our police officers' time is to have them go down to that beach and request that, you leash up your dog, when it wasn't even part of our municipal code. I think the signage will help. The CSO, community service officers, will help in that beach area, but they're going to help in that whole area. They'll help from Memorial Beach, probably Ramsey Beach, Memorial Beach, Matoska Park. They're going to help that whole area, especially during the busy times. That's a decision council will make. When they do it is on weekends when it's real busy. But I think that could be beneficial. And we're talking about, I think the decision was made, at least a recommendation possibly would be to extend those spin buoys out further. It's a little difficult sometimes with the fluctuation in the lake level. And the cleanliness of the lake, I think Paul did cover that. Not sure, but I think possibly a lot of that E. coli issue is related more towards waterfowl than animals or people. So I'm guessing that the beach closed one day. I was told by someone that had some environmental background, so I don't have the scientific data on that. So my closing statement, I guess the majority of the residents that we talked to and met with like the dog beach, and they want to keep it open. It provides a social connection for not only the dog owners, but there's also individuals that just like to watch. And as we're getting into society, if the social component is important, that's one reason our parks are so valuable. So last point is, I think the benefits far outweigh any problems or concerns, and we have to remember nothing is 100% perfect. So, thank you.
Before we begin the public hearing, this is probably a good time to remind everyone, whether you support what someone says or not, please don't applaud. It's only going to delay things, and we've got a lot of people to get through. So I want to get and hear from everybody that we can, but please don't applaud. You'll get the gavel, and it's just going to delay things. Before we do begin the public hearing, I do want to publicly recognize the Park Commission for all of your hard work on this. This goes back to when I was on the Park Commission 8 years ago, so I know what you guys did, the folks you talked to in grappling with these issues. And for those folks that don't know, the Park Commission, like all of our other citizen advisory commissions, are just volunteers in the community. Residents, our neighbors that are volunteering their time, don't necessarily have an agenda, just want to try and make good decisions. Doesn't mean we always agree with each other, but I do thank you for all of your efforts. And with that, I will open the public hearing. I do want to lay a couple of ground rules. As I've already said, please don't applaud. People can speak whether you agree or not. Just let them speak and get their comments out. I'm going to start with residents first. I'm looking around. There's a lot of people we want to get through, so we're gonna try and be at that 2-minute mark. Is your allotted time to speak? I'm gonna enforce that. And I'm going to ask you to try and avoid repeating yourselves. If someone that spoke before you has already said that, it's perfectly okay to say, I agree with so-and-so on that issue, or I'm here in favor of closing the dog beach, or I'm here in support of keeping it open. So we'll do residents first. I do have a list. If I don't call your name, whether you're a resident or non-resident, that doesn't mean you can't speak. If you didn't sign up on this list, that's okay. We'll make sure we get to you. So residents first, then I'm going to do non-resident property owners in the city of White Bear Lake. Those folks will go second. And then I'm confident we'll have time to allow this, but we'll have to play it by ear. Then we'll hear from non-residents third, and we'll see where we're at that point, what hour it gets to be in terms of what the time limitations will be for non-residents. But for now, we'll get things going with residents. When you do come up to the podium, please speak directly into the microphone and begin by stating your name and address, and then give us your comments. So with that, we're going to start marching through the list here. And of course, the first name on my list I can't read or pronounce, but we'll say the resident from 2291 9th Street. If you could please come up, state your name and address again for the record, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm Kim Keppen, good old German name, and I live at 2291 9th Street in White Bear Lake. I am a 26-year resident, and I am pleased to be in front of you all again. 26-year resident. I've had 3 dogs during that time. 2 of those dogs have used the dog park both when it was and was not an official dog beach. My current dog hates the water, so will not go down. I walk along Lake Avenue from West Park to what used to be Jiffy Lube. I don't know what it is now, but anyway, I walk along there almost every day. I have had a kayak and a john boat down by the shore. During that time, I've never had an issue. There was about a 9-year overlap, if you will, when the boats and things were down by the dog beach. I never had any issues accessing my kayak nor the john boat. There are poop bags, which are greatly appreciated at the top of the stairs. I have never experienced any random poop, and I've actually seen some people pick up other dogs' poop. Sometimes we do those kinds of things, right? Especially if you're a parent on top of all of that. I think that the council and the Parks Commission is responding incredibly well in monitoring our investment in the dog beach and making changes as we go along rather than throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I appreciate that. I was drawn to White Bear Lake because I think it is a dog community. I think it is a dog community. And I know that they're a part of the community because the first item on the consent agenda was to close Main Street for a dog parade. And we have a number of patios in downtown White Bear Lake that allow dogs to come as well. And so what I would actually like for you to do is keep supporting the dog beach and make changes and deal with individual people who violate the rules and regs rather than punishing everybody for the misgressions of a few. I appreciate you listening. Thank you.
And for those keeping track, that was right about at 2 minutes. So if we can stay at that, that'd be great. All right, the next name on my list is Dave Anderson, 5799 Otter Lake Road.
Hi, I'm Dave Anderson from 5799 Otter Lake Road. I'm here in favor to keep the dog beach open. I prepared a few notes here. First, I want to commend the Park Commission. They've done a great job down there with the rocks and access, fencing, the floats. I mean, well done. I've been using the dog beach for about 4 years, and without exaggeration, I've been there 150 times. During my visits, and my wife and my kids, we've never had a dog fight, never had a barking dog, never had a confrontation with another user, never had a confrontation with a homeowner, and never trespassed on private property. I think I'm pretty well represented as far as the demographic that uses the beach. We're in a community that's a working class people. We all respect other people's property, so I think we're fortunate to have the demographic we do and have the resource of White Bear Lake to utilize. The dog beach, it's a high-use park that offers a recreational opportunity for all age groups and physical capabilities. With the exception of the stone steps, I kind of question the accessibility there for some elderly people or people with limited capability. That's something the commission may want to take a look at. The park benches are often used by residents who sit above and watch the owners and their pets. So it's not only us that are in the water, but other residents of the community as well. It's a clean beach and has virtually no impact on the lake or the protected shoreline. So from the standpoint of longevity and care of the lake, you know, there's no downside there whatsoever. It's got minimal to no maintenance on the park budget or the taxpayers of the community. Very low capital cost with the exception of the fence and the buoys. I think there's some additional things we could do, but I'll bring that up right at the end. I think everybody here in this room has seen people sitting in the sand with their pets, wading out to their knees or waist and playing with their dogs. That's really what recreation is all about in this day and age. I honestly don't understand why you'd want to vote against a wholesome outside activity which serves every age group and provides an environment that is safe and not dependent upon technology, police protection, or requires a costly ticket of admission. I see children with their parents, grandparents, upper and middle-aged couples, and individuals using the park. The dog beach is extremely well used and cared for. The council should visit every park in this community. They are virtually empty unless there's an organized event. In contrast, the dog beach is highly used during the day, evening, and weekends by a wide range of taxpayers of this community. Closing the dog beach, I think, benefits a few at the cost of, unfair cost to the public. The council may, want to consider a couple minor upgrades such as extended fencing, adding garbage cans, and improve the parking. Let the community enjoy the dog park. I debated on bringing this point up, and
well, Mr. Anderson, you're at about 3 minutes and 20 seconds, so I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, thank you again. Next name on the list is Rachel Bonin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Rachel Bonin. I live at 4871 Lake Avenue. There's tremendous support for the dog beach here, which is excellent feedback, I think, for all of you. Dogs are very important to us, and as are dog amenities. As this tremendous support shows, 40 feet on the lake between 7th and 6th Street is just not the location for such a populated and popular dog beach. This postage stamp of land virtually in the front yards of citizens cannot support this amenity. We, the neighbors of the dog beach, complain about nuisance barking, trespassing, parking congestion, property damage, and water quality concerns. We have researched parking solutions, functional solutions that work in other dog parks. We've identified and suggested alternative locations and cooperated with city officials and safety personnel to attempt to problem solve all of these issues to no avail. We have submitted proof of the offenses time and time again, and we are denied that they are true. We have no recourse for any of these issues. We submitted a petition requesting that the beach move, or the city, move the dog beach. It is not a petition of 750 names. It is a petition of those of us who are most affected. Those who have signed this consist of neighbors living within close proximity who have regular beach interactions. Among them are swim dock users, renters of boats and slips and sail moorings, and nearly 50% of us are current dog owners, not dog haters. You've received detailed letters from many of us, most of us, and others will speak here tonight if there's time. This petition is testimony to the problematic nature of the dog beach at its current location and our exhausted attempts to try to solve it. I'd like us not to be confused about the issue. I care about my fellow citizens. The location of the dog beach is the problem. Please move it before something awful happens to someone or someone's pet. I know we have insurance for that, but that's really not going to hold a lot of water or make us feel better if it's your son or your daughter or your beloved pet. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, the next name on the list is 4885 Lake Avenue.
Greetings to all you council people and mayor. My name is Ann Lingle, and I live at 4885 Lake Avenue. My husband Scott couldn't be here tonight, but I speak for both of us, and we back everything that Rachel just said. And I have a couple things to add. Our quality of life has decreased since that dog beach has been there. We love to spend time down at the lake, enjoying the lake and with our family down there, and we have had numerous times where we're sitting on the dock and it's barking. And I know people have said, oh, they've stopped down there and they've looked and there isn't barking. Sometimes it's continuously, sometimes it's consecutively, a lot of times it's frequently. If you get somebody who comes down there with a dog that's excited and the owner holds a toy up and they get the dog all excited, well, that's what dogs do. They bark, and they bark and bark and bark until the owner throws the toy in the water. And it's been my experience and my family's experience that a lot of dog owners are so used to their dogs barking that they don't realize that it's a problem, that it's other people are having to hear it. And I mean, we'll have our house closed up, the air conditioning on, we can still hear the dogs barking in the house. And when this happens all day long on weekends or even half a day, it's too much. I talked to a relative today and said, well, I was going to this meeting tonight, and she said, oh, man, she goes, remember when last summer we were sitting down on your dock and I asked you if those dogs down there ever stop barking? And I said, sometimes, but a lot of times they don't. And I have another concern about, you're talking about the buoys and the fencing that's put up down at the dog beach. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but what happens when the lake level shrinks, as it seems to do in a cyclic matter? And what if we end up with 200 or 300 feet of beach again? How are you going to put that much fencing and buoys down to the water? In the past, we've had dogs break loose from down there, come ripping down the beach, come up into gatherings we've had down in our yard down there, take food off of toddler tables, sitting there eating hot dogs. We've had big groups down there, and a big dog comes down there and wipes out the whole buffet table of food that we've had for 20 guests. And this is not an exaggeration. It happens, and it's scary. And I'd like to know, how do you control that? Other than, do we throw rocks at them? Do we call the police? By the time they get there, the damage is done. And as far as the community officers down at the down at the dog beach or down at the Matoska Park, I've sat on my dock and watched community officers down there making nice with the dog owners while there were dogs standing there barking and off leash when we had leash laws. When that leash rule went into effect, I'd say maybe 2 out of 10 were ever on a leash down there. So, you know, that's kind of a moot point.
Ms. Lingle, I'm sorry, we're coming up on about the same time as the last time I cut,
Okay.
the other gentleman off, but
Okay.
I just want to be fair to both sides.
All righty.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, we've got Jeff Johnson is next on the list.
All right, thank you for the opportunity for all of us to share tonight. My name is Jeff Johnson at 4910 Moorhead Avenue. I have lived in the White Bear Lake area for 36 years. We're just a couple blocks from the dog park, and we have labs most of our life, and boy, they love to go swimming in the lake. But from what I've observed over the years is the Matoska Dog Park is a multi-use space with multiple stakeholders, and this space is used for families of white bear to swim, picnic, and fish, and includes those who have paid to rent space to keep their watercraft on the lake during the summer. There's enough rental space to accommodate 74 watercraft, which was already mentioned. You know, the canoes, the kayaks, and the sailboats, and the boat skids. And our family has also rented a kayak there for over 25 years. And what we have experienced is that this is a multi-use space. This multi-use space is where the dogs run around and defecate and urinate. And repeatedly, there is dog feces around the kayak canoe racks. Even if the dog feces is picked up, there's still a residue that remains, and it makes it unsanitary to walk around barefoot. And there are dogs that also defecate and urinate in the water. And I did go to the dog park years ago. I haven't been going for quite a time, and my dog was one of them that urinated and defecated into the lake. I have looked online, and you know, most dog parks in Minnesota have acres of land for the dogs to run and play. And the Matoska dog space can be measured in square feet. And to put this into perspective, 1 acre is 43,560 square feet. The area that's designated just for the dogs to defecate and urinate is 1,400 feet, and that's 31 times smaller than, say, a typical dog park, what I've observed. And some of the dog parks in Minnesota are multi-acres. The conclusion I have come to is that this is not a fight against dog parks. I love dogs, and I love having my dog having fun, but it is the location of the Matoska Dog Park is simply not suited to safely and respectfully accommodate all the stakeholders in this small space. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on the list is Brian Bonin.
Good evening. Good evening, Council. Brian Bonin, 4871 Lake Avenue. I was going to pass. I have sent multiple photos to the Council of dogs in my immediate hand length trying to eat off my plate at my property. I just want to make sure that's on record. More and more residents and non-residents are wanting to use this beach. Again, I think that's great, but we have a list of like nearly 750 people. That sounds much more like a regional beach. And now we're advising to go more off-leash. And we have rising and falling lake levels. How am I supposed to expect I'm not going to have more dogs off leash in my property? Please close this location and just move it. Please close it and just move it. There's a big demand for something. This location is just too small. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have Matt Wilson next.
Good evening. Thank you for the chance to share with you. My name is Matt Wilson. I live at 4877 Johnson Avenue, about a block from the lake. It's a privilege for me to walk a block with my paddleboard, walk down to the beach, get out to my sailboat, be sailing within just a few minutes. I'm very grateful. That's why I moved to White Bear Lake 5 years ago. I basically agree with the sentiment of there's just not enough space for all of the things, all the activities that go on in Matoska. When the Y dock is in its normal location, which is the sailboat dock, very regularly I would see dogs and dog owners and their kids swimming around the Y dock. I would have to call out to them as I'm coming in to pick up passengers at the Y dock and have to get them out of the way for their own safety. I've also used the 7th Street dock, the swim dock, a lot, and just last summer, after the barriers were put up, I was accosted by a barking dog off-leash in the swim area. I understand that the dog beach is very popular. I just would say there's not enough space for it there. I'm concerned about extending the spin buoys further because that starts to impede the boat traffic, especially when the lake is low. It really starts to encroach into the sailboat area. I would like to recommend that the dog park be moved to another location. I would also like to recommend that the council consider adding more racks because there are quite a few neighbors, my neighbor direct next door, who are retired, and they were told that when they tried to sign up for the kayak rentals, the wait list is so long that it's not even worth putting your name on. So it would be really wonderful. I would very much prefer that the Matoska landing be mostly about the boating. So thank you.
I believe it's Connie McCall, 4901 Stewart. Or Connor. My apologies. It is. Definitely is.
Council members, Ms. Mayor, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Connor McCall at 4901 Stewart Avenue. My wife and I moved here in 2021. We were drawn by the walkable, welcoming downtown community. We discovered the dog beach after we moved. Our anxious dog doesn't get to go there except when it's empty, which we find is pretty frequent, actually, especially in the mornings and evenings. This isn't about my dog's happiness. The dog beach fosters neighborhood connections, boosts local businesses like our favorite coffee shops and ice cream parlors, and has been part of the community for 20 years. It is not perfect. That is definitely true. Users in the cities should continue to work to improve the use, but I visit that part of Lake Avenue most days. It's busy and vibrant, and the noisy and bustling experience isn't just from the dog beach. There's a mix of families chatting, children playing, boats entering and leaving the lake. Dogs, bikers, runners are on the path. Closing the dog beach would remove a cherished amenity and likely we would continue to have noise and traffic, which is part of living by this bustling environment. I sent you the collection of 700 signatures and 200 comments in support of the dog beach. I hope you take a chance to read through them, and I hope you keep the dog beach open. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Peter Nielsen.
We can't hear very well. People have to talk closer to the microphone.
Thank you. I don't know if you heard that. We're
Yes,
having
I
some
did.
trouble hearing, so everyone please speak.
My name is
into the
Peter
microphone.
Nielsen. I live at 2165 12th Street. The dog park, we've lived there for 30 plus years now. We built a house there. And the dog beach has been such a big thing for our family. My wife, right now she's doing the dog on a leash. It's a 30-foot leash. She'll do it on that. But she also said that if the beach was closed, she'd probably be breaking the law because the dog wants to swim, and a lot of people have dogs that way. There's barking, but I've had dogs barking that aren't on the beach. They're at houses along Lake Drive there, or Lake Avenue. When I've been at the dog beach, I have not seen any problems with the dogs. We're very happy to have that. It's a very necessary item for the neighborhood, for the whole community. I want to thank the council for listening to this, and for the Parks Department for their response, and they're checking doing all the tests of the water quality and all that, and the noise and complaints people have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ooh. 2281 4th Street. Amy Bartholomew?
Good evening. Can you hear me? Thank you so much for taking the time to be here tonight to listen to the interests of the community. I live at 2281 4th Street. My name is Amy Bartholomew. It's several blocks from the dog park, but my husband and I have a sailboat that we've had on a mooring ball at Matoska for about 10 years. Like one of the other people who spoke, we actually either swim out to our sailboat or we take our paddleboard out to our sailboat. And so to get there, as you saw from some of the illustrations earlier, like we have to go directly through the dog beach in order to get to our mooring ball. In all the times, we probably go out maybe once a week in the summertime. So over the last 10 years, never once have I ever encountered a dog that was unruly. I've never encountered a dog that was aggressive. I've never seen poop in the lake. I realize that might be a concern for people. But it's not something I've experienced. I appreciate the fact that the Parks Board has gone out and done studies, and they haven't seen those things. They haven't experienced those things. So again, as someone who is doing this once a week in the summertime, I think that I have a good sense of it. One of the things that I think is great about White Bear Lake is that it's a really dog-friendly community. So it's not just those of us who live here, but those of us who come here and spend money here. So people might come and go to the dog park with their dog, but they can also go to shops with their dog. They can go to the Art Preserve. They can go to Fratelloni's hardware store. They can go to Sassafras Health Food Store. They can go to the liquor store. They can go to the bank. Like all of those places welcome dogs. And then there's also a bunch of restaurants, bars and restaurants that offer dogs. So you have Washington Square, who has a great dog-friendly patio. You have Tally's, Admiral D's. You can bring your dog to Market Fest in the summertime, and you can stop at Four Deuces with your dog and watch music. So I guess I would just ask the community or ask the city council to think about like what message that sends to the people who might be coming here and spending money in our shops, in our restaurants. What message does it send if we say we're closing the dog park and your dogs aren't welcome here anymore? That's all. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Mary Niklowski, 4830 Johnson Ave.
Hi, City Council, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for listening to me and listening to all these people with wonderful comments. I moved into my house in 2009. The dog beach was there when I moved in, as was Lake Avenue, as was the boat landing, as was all the other parks that are near our home in our wonderful community. When the dog beach, when the city engineer talked about how the lake level went down, and there was a problem with the dog beach because there was no separation. And I was in agreement that, yeah, there has to be, it's a dog beach. We have to have a little bit of separation if we're going to have people swimming and dogs. And I just have to commend the park board who has volunteered thousands of hours of time in the past 10 years or so, and the City Council, who've done a fantastic job listening to everybody on all sides of the issue, because I know it's a hard issue. However, after the improvements are made, we've spent all this money on it. Now, I rarely see a problem down there. I have seen some problems. It's not 100%, but I rarely see problems down there. And we've spent time and money on this park that people really enjoy. And I can't help but think this isn't about the dog beach. We live in a community that has to share. And I live a block away from this dog beach. I live a block away from the boat landing. I am much more bothered by the boat landing and the people parking their trailers in front of my driveway many times and leaving their garbage in my yard, or their dogs from their boats pooping in my yard. So if I can hear that a block away, I can hear the boat landing. I cannot hear the dog beach. So I'm wondering why we aren't talking about the boat landing. So we've got a boat landing there that causes a lot of problems. I've seen people in their boats almost hit kids who were swimming at the beach. I've seen a lot of problems with the boat landing. So why aren't we talking about the boat landing? I bought my house knowing I was going to have to share my community. I used to live in a very quiet area. I wanted to live in a community that shared their community. And I'm just so happy to live in this community, and I can't believe that we are going to listen to a handful of people that are lucky enough to live across the street from this park, which has been there since 2007. So many of the people who live there bought their house knowing there was a dog beach there. It's almost like moving in to a farm with dairy cows and building your house there and then saying, well, this is really bothering me. These cows are mooing and they're pooping. But I mean, but you bought a house there. I bought my house knowing the boat landing was there, and I'm not calling the city complaining all the time about people parking and their dogs pooping in my yard or them leaving trash in my yard. I'm not doing that because I know I live in a community and I have to share it. And I think it sets a bad precedence to think that if people who live across the street from all our parks in White Bear Lake can dictate how those parks are used, there's going to be problems. When you buy your house there, the value of your house reflects the price when you bought it across the street from a park or across the street from a boat landing or across the street. So I just think that people are enjoying this place. We have to share our community. I think that's what our community is about. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, next up, Sandy Flint, 1729 Florence Street.
Hi, I'm Sandy Flint, and I live at 1729 Florence Street. I've been in the community for about 30 years, and we've used the dog park. We have several dogs, and they've just really enjoyed it there. There has been a little issue sometimes when you mix leash dogs with unleashed dogs, so it does make sense to have one policy at the park. But other than that, we've just enjoyed a lot of time with our dogs at the park. And I just want to thank you for sharing or for listening to us.
Thank you. All right, Kelly Whalen is next.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I've been following this issue by watching the City Council meetings online and following the notes. So happy to be here to communicate with you in person. I'm here in support of the dog park. I live at 2199 First Street, so a bit away from the dog park. I have 2 dogs currently, and we often visit the dog park, and we have great experiences there. I would agree that we need to kind of come up with either a leash solution or an off-leash solution, because that does present some issues amongst the dogs. I'm concerned that we continue to spend taxpayer dollars on an issue that has been settled multiple times for several people that feel that they do not want the dog park in their front yard. And I think that behooves the city council, and especially folks that are representing our area, to consider their constituents when they're making decisions related to the dog park. I'd also like to add that there were conversations in both the notes that were shared from the commission as well as from the city engineer related to both a report of a dog bite in 2022 as well as a lost dog in 2024. And I believe if you take more time to research those, they're actually related to experiences I personally had, neither of which were related at all to the dog park or were located near the dog park. So I would suggest that the city council take time to review the notes on those police calls to confirm that they are not related to the dog park. Again, I support this. My family supports this. I know there are a number of people who cannot be here tonight to support this, and I'm also trying to speak for them as well because I know that they couldn't be here because of other obligations. I also know that there are many residents and users of the dog park that are not aware that this conversation is happening right now because they may not be as clued in as some of us are to the city council. They may not be following the local newspaper. So I'm speaking on behalf of them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Janine Rowenbach, clerk, 2505 Sky Blue Court.
Hello.
Hi there.
Janine Rumbach Clark. My address 2505 Sky Blue Court. I've been here for 5 years and have a dog that she has a pretty extensive vocabulary, and one of her favorite things is she's learned to identify the lake as big water. And in the spring, the first time that I say, we're going to big water, she gets very excited. So she has enjoyed the park, as have I with her. I walk about 5 miles a day in town, and I just wanted to say that I have had multiple experiences with dogs off leash far away from the dog park. One time was a fairly aggressive dog. Fortunately, we didn't get bitten, but this is not an issue that's only taking place in the rare occasions that it has taken place apparently in that general vicinity. I experience it in multiple neighborhoods. So this is just something that happens and shouldn't happen, but not unique there. The other thing I would just say is that, again, to put in perspective, I think there are multiple areas of the city at different times that get rather noisy. And again, these are community events and they get loud, and that's just part of enjoying excitement and community events. And again, my time at the beach, I've never experienced any problem. So I would put those in perspective as being rare in the context of many, many people and many, many dogs enjoying the beach, which I'm in support of.
Thank you very much. A resident at 2335 7th Street.
Thank you for your time, Mayor, City Manager, council members, support staff. I live at 2335 7th. My name is Keith Smelser. We moved to this home, or this area, 56 years ago, at a time when there was no dog beach, there was no steps down to the lake, and I've prepared a couple of comments. I'm going to read them so I don't miss anything. 56 years ago, we moved into our home in this neighborhood, and at that time, homes along Lake Avenue from 7th south to 6th along the shoreline, where there's currently a swimming beach, a dog park, and boat storage, both onshore and on city buoys, were being used as private property with private docks and no trespassing. A few years after that, we moved in. A group of neighbors decided they would like to make this a public space, and they ended up building some steps down to the lake. Well, that riled up a few people, and subsequently a lawsuit was filed, and it turned out, rightly so, that property along between 7th and 6th, from the middle of 7th down toward the landing, was declared private, or was declared public, and still is. This stretch of shoreline, beginning at the center of 7th, where the steps are now located, was open to the public for access, accessing tethered boats, public use of the beach, and especially for swimmers of all ages, often with their parents. The 7th Street stairs, the dock, the beach area not only accommodate swimmers, but for years we have observed families with canoes, kayaks, paddle boards, small paddle boats, carrying or wheeling them down to access the lake at the end of the street. Families from all around the area, not just this immediate neighborhood, use the swimming area. It's cozy. It's a small area where parents can be close to their young swimmers as they enjoy the water. Our 3 children pretty much lived at the 7th Street Beach, and as do both of our young grandchildren. I have to say that our grandchildren have since moved out of the area, so I'm talking in terms of my usage up within the last 2 years, but 50-some years earlier. Not only do we observe families who drive to the neighborhood so their youngsters can swim and play at the 7th Street dock, it's nice to see grandmas and grandpas, moms pushing their strollers, carrying beach toys as they walk by our way on a day to the beach. During the summer, our 2 grandchildren and I, my wife wrote this, during the summer, my grandchildren and I are a common sight as they carry their fishing poles down to the lake early in the morning. Never fail, they always come home with a few sunnies, occasional crappie, clean them, and we fry them for their lunch. For the afternoon, the kids and I return to the swimming dock and they swim for the rest of the afternoon into the evening. As a personal comment, I'm at that dock not as an observer, but as a 4 or 5 hour time frame. So when someone says, I've observed this, I don't know how long they've observed it. I can say to you, I've observed things for a significant amount of time.
Sir, I'm going to let you finish because, in fairness, I honestly don't know which way you're falling on this issue. So it's fair for both sides. But you're at 4 minutes, but I'm going to give you a little more time to finish up. Go ahead.
2 minutes. Now,
wow. All right. Now, you don't ask, you don't get. The 2 minutes you got, please.
Our experiences with the 7th Street swimming dock area over the 56 years have been positive, and it's one of the reasons we continue to live here. Truthfully, we are accustomed to living with heavy use of the surrounding area for Manitou Days Parade, for Market Fest parking. By the way, parking does come down almost to the lake. July 4th fireworks, and in the what is new in this is the significant use of the dog park. And although some dog owners pick up after their dogs, it's not uncommon for some not to. I'm not blaming the dogs, but that's their natural thing. Given the fact that really the issue in my mind is this is an extremely small area with multiple use things. It's too small for a dog park. It's obviously very popular and highly used, but I think the city needs to consider relocating the dog park to a larger area that's controlled. I know there are a number of dog parks within the state that are highly popular and regulated, some for large dogs, some for small dogs. At any rate, my interest and others in the neighborhood is to have the city consider moving the dog park. It's not so much that the dog park isn't popular. I believe the evolution of the dog park has grown like topsy, and it's probably a consideration that if it had been studied earlier would make sense to say dog parks and swimming beaches, swim beach and dog beach should not be adjoined. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Jason Sherritt, 2338 7th Street.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jason Sherritt. I live at 23387th Street, just a couple doors off of Lake Avenue. I grew up with a handful of golden retrievers, so I'm a dog lover. I understand what it's like to have a space where you can take your dogs off leash, run around, enjoy the water, enjoy the space. I also have 2 young kids now. I have Ian, age 6, and Natalie, age 4. Unfortunately, we have had some aggressive interactions with dogs at the dog beach as a result of being off leash. So dogs coming through the fenced areas, around the buoys, up and over the hill, coming into the beach area. And I've had to have a few instances where I've had to grab a dog, hold it down, it's come towards my children, and then I've had to go talk with the owners. I've usually not been one to call the police because I don't enjoy using the city's resources for that, so I go deal with the owner myself. If I actually called the police, I could drown the police in calls, but I don't do that. I think, in my opinion, having a space for the dogs to be off leash and to play is a huge asset to the city, so I understand how important that is to the people here and the community. My proposal is, like a lot of the other people here, it's too small of a space. Being adjoined to the swimming beach, next to the boat launch, next to the canoe area, it's just too many things in one space. And the dogs being off leash just further compounds the issue. So at a minimum, I think the dogs need to be on the leash. At the best, I think relocation is the best option. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori Hughes.
Hello, Lori Hughes, 4984 Stewart Avenue. Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you very much for being here tonight to hear us all. I'll be quick. This is a public park. It's for everyone. It's not just for the boaters. It's not just for the people who like to jet ski. It's not just for the people who like to walk on Lake Avenue. It's not just for the people who like to bike or swim or bird watch or whatever. It is a public park, and it's available for everyone. That's what public means. It's an amenity that we share in our community, and I hope that we keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Amundsen.
Hi, Mike Amundsen, 1880 Ivy Lane. And for those of you not familiar with Ivy Lane, that's way down in Ward 5, down on the south end of town. I've noticed a lot of the addresses tonight have been really close to the dog park. And I wanted to bring in that kind of other voice. I've had my dog now 3 years, and we take almost weekly trips up to the lake because the walk by the lake is just special. It's a little different than walking around in the neighborhood. And having the dog park be a part of Lake Avenue is a huge resource. I have other neighbors that, we talk as we walk our dogs around, and they say the same thing. We love every once in a while being able to go up to Lake Avenue and knowing there is the dedicated spot right there as you're, walking Lake Avenue, to be able to say, this is where I can put my dog in. Whereas if this was closed, like one of the previous commenters said, that, maybe we just go on Ramsey Beach and walk the dog into the lake because it's a hot summer day, or West Beach, or the boat launch, or suddenly you have dogs in the water in all the areas, and having this one beach dedicated for the dogs is great. And sorry, let me just check my notes. As we've seen, there's the marina is always overflowing, the boat launch is always overflowing. I think we're just seeing the same thing here. The dog beach is very popular because being on a lake in Minnesota summers is important to everybody. So I hope we keep the option, keep it open, and let everybody keep using the dog beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Peterson.
Council, Mayor, thank you for having me. My name is Dave Peterson. I live at 4152 White Bear Avenue. I'm in favor of the dog beach. Having a senior dog, walking him around on the hot pavement in the summer is difficult. He's got mobility problems. Being able to go to the dog beach is huge for him. I can take him down there. He can float. He can swim. It's low impact on him. It's great. I love going down there. I've met so many people just observing, so many people with dogs, just people in the community enjoying, this public space. It's fantastic. We do put a pontoon boat in there. Now, I have seen issues with dogs off leash. The ones I've seen are people coming or going from the boat launch itself, letting their dogs off their boat, getting their dogs back onto their boat. I've seen dogs go ripping around all over. I haven't had or seen issues with dogs around the beach itself. Yes, there's been poop and stuff like that. That happens. It gets picked up. The beach has been very clean. I enjoy wading out there myself, with my dogs when it's hot. I think it's a great amenity to have in this city. It does bring people together. I've met multiple elderly people that walk down from the senior apartments and whatnot, sit there and just watch, and they enjoy doing that. Brought my dog up there. It's therapeutic to them. Stuff like this you don't have this everywhere. White Bear is a fantastic community. How many beaches do we have, how many dog beaches do we have that are actually on a lake that's not mucky, just nasty? This you can actually enjoy. It's nice to be able to walk, if we are down there. You can walk into downtown, go to the coffee shop, go to the square, go wherever. There's a lot of places, a lot of things to do. So basically, I'm definitely for this. I get people's frustration with parking, but last time I checked, the streets around the lake you can park on them. I haven't seen any no parking signs. So, if we're going to start complaining about that, living on White Bear Avenue, people talking about poop everywhere, we have a sidewalk. I'm constantly picking up dog poop. That's not mine. I don't know what to do. It is what it is. You just pick it up. So, all in all, I think it's a great thing to have. Been using it since its inception. It's great to have. So, hopefully we can keep it around. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
$5980 Portland Ave.
Heidi Brigley, 5980 Portland Avenue. I've been a resident of White Bear Lake area for 44 years, and although I'm not using the dog beach with my latest dog because he's a reactive big dog and I wouldn't do that, I used it for like 12 years on a regular basis. And I'd drive over and walk Lake Avenue. And during the summer when it was hot, I loved being able to take him down there. And also, like the last person said, when he got older, it was great to just let him go down there. And I used the long leash. But I will say I never agreed with that because half the people were doing it and half weren't. So I would say either one or the other. And I think making dogs be on leash, people won't follow it because a lot of people like to take their dog down there and throw the ball out and let them swim for it. So I guess that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to come and support the people because there's so many people that love that dog beach, and I agree that I met so many nice people down there, and I didn't see that many problems, occasionally, but not as much as I was down there. I used to walk that length every day, and there is barking, but when I'd go to the beach, people come and go. They don't stay there all day long with their dog usually, so it's kind of a changeover. But thank you for listening to all of us.
Thank you. All right, I may have missed a couple of the residents that signed in here, so I'm going to be done reading names of residents. I'm going to call any residents that want to speak whose name I didn't read off. Any residents that would like to say something to this, please. First come, first serve. Sir, you raised your hand. Come on up.
I had my name on the list, but
Yeah, there's a lot of names. I might have fumbled it. You can blame me. The podium's yours.
Okay, my name is Gene Peterson. I live at 2343 7th Street. Lived there in the street for 48 years. And again, thank you for taking the time to listen to it all over and over again, I guess. But I come on a little different tack, and I'd like to make the case for the third option, or another option, and that is the area between Speece Landing and the Manitou Island Bridge. And I know the Planning Commission has looked at it and knows way more about it than I do. And I actually called a strong dog beach advocate to run my ideas by her, and she said that the Planning Commission has rejected it, and she gave reasons, and I doubt it's necessarily your reasons, but the reason she said was that it was mucky, interfere with the boats. The Manitou Island people wouldn't like it. They like the cliff. The current dog beach is a separation of the dogs and the people. But I'm a researcher by trade, in my profession, and so I decided to do a little research on my own, which consisted of, measuring the distances of the beaches, walking out in the water. I've used the dog beach, and what I came up with is, well, first of all, it's a 60% wider area. These are pretty approximate measurements because I stepped them off, but what I got was 104 yards for the new area compared to 65 yards for the old area. And what really surprised me, because I walked on the other side of the docks at Speece Landing on the west side, and it was mucky. And so I was totally expecting, I was surprised myself. I was expecting it to be mucky, but I walked out about 100 feet and it was hard sandy beach and depth very similar to the dog beach now. And it started getting a thin coat of weeds at, between 50 and 75 feet, but they would disappear in no time. Once with use, it was still hard sand. But what may be the best thing about this, it had you've probably all seen it, but it has this grassy, gentle slope the whole distance across there, unlike the dog beach where you're going down a steep stairs, you're funneled through a 3-foot rock wall, which congests people. I mean, it's way better for elderly people. I take care of frequently grand dogs, and they're King Charles Cavaliers, and they're afraid to go down the steps. And at my age, I'm kind of afraid to carry them down the steps. So I understand you can walk from the boat landing, but when water's high, you'd be walking through water for part ways, which elderly people don't like. So I think it's better for both elderly people and small dogs to the other area. As far as the cliff being a barrier, there's no walking path past there, so you don't have to worry about having that barrier. It's next to a park-like setting, which I think people would like. It has parking potential. I know this would be expensive, but if you expanded that lot, but even if you didn't do that, it's still plenty easily accessible from the street parking. But I just think it solves a lot of problems. And I know you guys know way more about it than I do, so there's probably objections I'm not thinking of. But as far as my research went, I'm thinking, why aren't we looking at this? And it's a win-win rather than this constant win-lose that we're in now. But anyway, I appreciate your listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Did I miss someone at 4881 Cook Ave, a resident that wanted to speak? 4881, Mary?
That was me, but pretty much everything has been said.
Okay.
Except one thing. So, my name's Mary Griffith, and I live at, never done this before. I'm Mary Griffith, and I live at 4881 Cook Avenue. We frequently walk by there. And I like his idea. I think it's a really interesting idea he has. But I do want to say, when some people were talking about that the dogs were in their front yard, but that we have to remember that's not their front yard. And I do know when I have walked there, I don't know if it's 7th Street or something, there's like a white, I think it might be your house, Heidi. There's a dog that's on a leash and barks a lot. So not all the barking comes from the dog swimming beach area. I do have to say that. So, and I've never seen a problem, and I walk by there frequently. So that's just my part. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any of the residents?
Hello, my name is Ella Oklubja, and I live on 4166 Park Ridge Drive. And I'm here to state my case to not close the dog beach. All dog owners that I have seen are very responsible. Last summer, me and my dog spent a lot of time there, and I think that it brings together our community and gives the dogs a lot of exercise. And that is why I think we should not close the dog beach.
Clap on that one if you want. That's for the team. Thank you.
We're good. Hi, I'm Melissa Gorgas. I live on 2251 Thomas Lane. I have lived in White Bear my whole life. I'm proud to announce I just became a new homeowner here too, so officially putting down roots. I have a long history of using that beach from childhood onwards and currently. The main point I wanted to bring up, in addition to everything that's been discussed, is it seems like the counter arguments to keeping the beach is relocation. I think we need to consider what that reality would actually look like. What is the time and effort that would have to go into something like that? And I also consider how much effort and time and money we've put into where it's at right now, and is it worth scrapping all of that? And additionally, what's the finance of relocation, no matter where it is? And as the previous gentleman just brought up too, I think it is important to consider, if we move it, where is it going to be? Is it going to still be in a proximity to downtown? Because that seems to be important to most people. Is it going to be similar distance to that Lakeshore Drive area? What is the actual location going to bring for that type of recreation? Just wanted to pose some of those questions, because although relocation may appease some people, it might not be the most logical thing to do. And in general, I'm just in favor of keeping it. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other residents? Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Devin Swanson, and I live at 22417 7th Street. And for those of you that aren't familiar with exactly where that's at, it is between 61 and the lake. We are one block in. Our cross street is Cook. We're right on the corner. And as somebody else expressed earlier, made the comparison of building a house next to a farm and complained about the farm. I had an experience with our assistant city manager 4 years ago where I brought a safety concern to his attention and asked for solutions. And he told me that, what did I expect? I moved to a destination neighborhood. And this was a safety concern that impacts my young daughter. And so while I don't know what it's like to live on Lake Avenue, I know what it's like to take advantage of Lake Avenue and all the things that it offers, including the dog park, which we love. And so I'm in favor of keeping the dog park. But those complaints that people have about living across the street from the dog park, we have those too. We have barking dogs. We have people that walk through our yard. We discussed trying to put a fence up to create some more separation, but we can't because of the easement. Like, we have those issues as well. And because we're so close to downtown, we can't park on our street during Market Fest, and it's okay. It's the price we pay for living where we do. And so I'd like the city council to consider keeping the dog park for the rest of us who really enjoy it, and also deal with some of the nuances of living in downtown White Bear. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, any other residents? Yes, please.
John McGuire, 4639 Lake, former business owner for 25 years downtown. I just want to stress there wasn't a breakfast, lunch, or dinner. We didn't have 1 to 6 dogs on our patio. Some came in wet, telling me that there was a visit to the lake somewhere. I think it's important for this dog beach, for the downtown area, to attract people with or without pets. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other City of White Bear Lake residents that want to speak to this issue? Okay. We're going to move on to any property owners, not necessarily residents, but property owners in White Bear, business owners. All right. Well, we managed to make it through in a timely fashion, so let's move on to non-residents. I have a couple on my list that I'll start with, and then we can go with folks that are not on the list. So first non-resident on the list is Steve Renner, 5328. Are you township or? Township. Very good. It said WBL. I wasn't sure. But.
So I'm Steve Renner of 5328 Baird Lane, which is somewhat between Bald Eagle Lake and Tamarack Nature Center. So I have 2 black labs, and I echo a lot of, I'm in favor of the dog park. Just want to share a little bit with my life with my 2 dogs who will chase a tennis ball for hours. And that's what they do. That's what a lot of dogs do. We have access to a number of other areas where we take our dogs, but as we know in the Twin Cities, I'm a city slicker, I guess, 99% of the place in the Twin Cities requires a dog to be on a leash. They can't be a dog off a leash. I can't walk around a neighborhood. I can't go to my school field when no one's there and have them chase the ball. I can't go to Tamarack Nature Center. We can walk in some woods that we got come summertime. Those are infested with ticks that both I and the dog get. So come a hot summer day, my only option, or one of my options, is the water park, the dog park there. It is a gift, absolute gift for my dogs. The dogs will chase that tennis ball for an hour. And it's also it's basically their social club. They're there having a lot of fun with a lot of other dogs. And that's my life. So I'm in favor of the dog park. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh boy. 708, someone from Township. David. David from Township. Those are the only clues I have. David M. from Township. How about that? David M. Okay, all right, we'll move on. Oh, sorry. Take your time. Come on up, yeah, if you could. Since I didn't get much of your name and none of your address, please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Dave McMullen. My mother grew up in Bald Eagle, so we've got the history here. We lived in the White Bear area virtually all my life. I think I originally moved here when I was about 5 years old. So I've certainly got the history here. Lived on Lake Avenue, lived down in Montemita, lived on the lake. So I've got a lot of time and effort in here. Been ice skating from one end to the other and enjoyed the lake. And now as an adult, and I've had golden retrievers for a number of years, it's great to give them a chance to get out and be in the water. But I also have to be an honest citizen supporting the needs of the area. So I make sure I pick up after my dog and keep her away from doing things she shouldn't do or whatever. But this is her opportunity to get out and do something. It seems to me like a lake like White Bear that's got at least, I think it's in the area of 12 miles of shoreline, that to not be able to take a couple 100 yards or 100 feet and make it a dog beach. And I think there's only, 3 dog beaches on the entire White Bear Lake. I think there's one in Matamidi and so forth. So maybe a total of 3. Out of 12 plus miles going around the lake, I don't think it's asking too much to keep that. All the people I see go down there, we pick up after the dogs. We try to keep it clean. I talk to people that don't keep their dogs on leash and remind them that they're supposed to, but I'm not going to start a fight over it either. So I think it's just good that we share and share alike. Everybody's got lots around the lake and you can enjoy it, but to take a few 100 feet in a lake this big and not give an opportunity to have a spot to take your dog, it's a little ridiculous. I think we can certainly afford to give that much to a few dogs once in a while. And they don't do it 365 days a year. Primarily the summer, spring, fall seasons, and that's about it. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, would anyone else like to speak to this issue? Please come on up.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Isaac. I'm at 1983 Stillwater Street in White Bear Township. We just moved here, my husband and I, with our 2 dogs. Although we're new to the community, although we're new residents to the community, we've been here for over 30 years. Both of us growing up in Matamidi and White Bear Lake. White Bear Lake has been so important to us. We've had dogs all of our lives, and we've visited beaches that maybe we weren't supposed to be out with our dogs because we didn't know about the designated dog beaches. This has been such a gift for us to meet community. I recognize so many people here. I couldn't tell you their names, but I do know their dogs' names. Sorry. That just gives it such a sense of community and how important this is to us. We need somewhere to go, and we need somewhere that is designated for us. We don't belong at the other public beaches with kids and picnics and everything else. I mean, my dog is off leash. He's a great listener, but also I think we need somewhere specific to go. Also, a personal touch is one of our dogs is a 3-legged dog. He doesn't walk well. We can go maybe a quarter of a mile, otherwise he rides in a wagon. But he's a stunner swimmer, and we really need the water. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak and to be heard, and I also want to recognize the Park Board for their beautification and improvement on the functionality in the recent years. It's so pretty. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
Hi there. I've never done this before, so I'm kind of nervous. My name is Betsy Langowski. I live in Delwood. I'm at 19 Meadow Lane in Delwood, but before that I was in White Bear, and I fell in love with White Bear. I lived in California. I came here for 2 weeks, and I said I never want to leave, and I didn't. I bought a house by the Cup and Cone, and I basically never left. I am just here in support of the Dog Beach. I think it is absolutely a magical place. Everybody's brought up great points. Just one extra point I haven't heard brought up is in the land of 10,000 lakes, it's really important that our dogs are not anxious around water. And this gives us the opportunity to make sure that we just have a stronger presence around water with our beloved pets, which keeps them safe, us safe, and our neighbors safe. So I'm disappointed in some of the not in my backyardisms I'm hearing. I love the sentiments around this community, that we share it, and I hope that you vote to keep it open. Really, thank you so much for taking the time to hear us all tonight. Bye.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Going once. Going twice. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you, everyone who gave testimony, either for or against. As the last gal said, she was a little nervous coming up here. It's not easy to get up and talk in front of all these people, so I do appreciate those that did speak. I also want to say thank you to the many, many, many people who called and emailed, myself and others on the council, on both sides, who weighed in on this issue. Before we get into kind of my thoughts, and then I kick it to the council for their thoughts, I do want to recognize how proud I am of many community members just weighing in on this and engaging in a pretty good civil discourse on this. Participation in any form of government or on issues is kind of waning, and at least in White Bear Lake, when it comes to a dog beach, people get engaged. So that's been impressive to see the good arguments on both sides. All right, I'm going to kick things off with my comments. I will note again, there's no action being taken. The point of tonight was to get public feedback, and then the council will give some direction to staff, depending on which way things are going, to bring a resolution at the first meeting in March. But I suspect March 11th. But I suspect others on the council at least want to share some thoughts, even if they're undecided at this point. So I will kick things off and share my opinions. The question before the council right now is not whether the dog beach is popular. It clearly is. It's not whether there are a lot of people that derive enjoyment from this amenity. And it is an amenity. I know folks like bringing their dogs there, but like any amenity, we prioritize things and decide what we want to deal with, what issues we want to work through. So no one's questioning that there are lots and lots of dog lovers out there that enjoy this amenity, and who could blame them? It's unique. There's nothing else like it in the metro. There's reasons for that. There's a reason why every other dog beach is a dog park, let alone near water, is fully fenced in. And it's not whether many or even most of the dog users are responsible and respectful to the neighborhood. Maybe they are. Maybe most people do follow the rules. And maybe it is an extreme minority. But those folks that are, these are very real issues that we have to address. The question I see before the council is whether a large concentration of dogs is appropriate for this residential area in a heavily used park with very limited space and lots of other uses. The canoe racks, the skids, boat traffic, picnickers, those folks. So the question becomes, how do we go about answering that question? Is this appropriate for this space? And I'll speak only for myself. Council members on the council might disagree, but here's how I approach this. I think it would be inappropriate to take a snapshot in time right now in 2005 and say, the dog park's really popular, all these people love it, we got to keep it open. We have to look at the history leading up to this. So Mr. Coppy did a good job kind of laying the bullet points, but to me, the thinking of prior councils, prior park commissions is really, really important. So I want to walk through that because it helps me understand and frame up this issue. So in August of 2007, the council approved Mataska Park between the boat ramp and 7th Street as a designated area for dogs to be off-leash, quote, when under the active supervision of the person owning, harboring, or keeping the dog, obedient to that person's command. So the expectation some 18 years ago was always contemplated that if we're going to have this dog beach, the number one priority is that they are under the constant control and command of their owner. I think in 2007, the council recognized that unruly dogs are bad. Without even taking the position of whether there have been unruly dogs here, we can all agree that that is something that we need to keep a close eye on. So in the early years of this, it sounds like the usage of the dog park was pretty low, and therefore we didn't have many issues. And then you fast forward a few years, and we have an increase in the usage of the dog park, and with that came an increase in complaints, and that's when the issues began to arise, and that was somewhere around 2016. So after repeated concerns over the continued use of that portion of Mataska Park as a designated dog area, on February 28th, 2017, the council took up the issue. And I went back this afternoon and rewatched that meeting. I say rewatched because I watched it in person in 2017 from the chair, third row back, as a member of the Park Commission. And I spoke at that council meeting on behalf of the Park Commission, who at that time voted unanimously in the other direction, saying we've identified all these issues, and these issues are insurmountable, and we'd like to close the dog beach. So that, the Park Commission has flipped. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but that was my perspective 8 years ago when I, like the Park Commission members that put all the time in, I too, and others on the Park Commission, went and spent a lot of time observing. My observations, I think, were a little different than what folks have observed. Maybe things have changed, maybe not. But we, 8 years ago, went back and went through that exercise. And I think what's important is, and what was important to me, was to go back and look at, I think there were a couple people on the dais today that were still on the council back then, and look at what their analysis was and how they approached working through these issues. As a side note, because it's important to mention, at that same time in 2017, something else very important was happening. The lake levels finally, after many, many years, had returned to normal levels. And I dug up an article from the White Bear Press where the headline was, White Bear Lake levels hit average elevation for the first time in 11 years. And that was May 24th, 2017. So how do we translate that headline, lake levels have returned? Well, the translation is what was once dry lake bed where these dogs recreated and was much further away from the homes was now water. The lake level came up, the lake level came up, and the water was closer to the shoreline right now. And that resulted in all of this dog activity being closer than it once was and historically was. It was also that same year that the 7th Street swim dock was reintroduced after many, many years of being absent because of low lake levels. It was also at the same time that boat activity had begun to return. So in 2017, that was a very important time. And the Park Commission at that time and the council grappled with it, that we have some issues and we need to identify how do we work through this. So it was in 2017 that the council ultimately adopted the agenda that Mr. Coppe alluded to, where I think the council cautiously, my word, not what was said at the council, but the council cautiously approved continuing the dog area, but imposed several conditions. And it was there that the leash, 30-foot leash requirement was imposed. It was there that the council said we want to have a clearly defined dog area signage. And most notably, and I think this has either been misconstrued or just not talked about, in 2017, the council made it very clear that this would be an experiment for 1 year. The council in 2017, those that were on can correct me if I'm wrong, were on in 2017, had a lot of concern about this, and that's why they called it an experiment and said we're going to implement these conditions and see how it goes and revisit it. I think one of the council members said, we'll see if it works, and if not, we'll reevaluate it. And I will say this, several members on the council in 2017, including the mayor at that time, made it abundantly clear that they wanted to hear from residents regarding bad conduct and complaints. Anyone's free, it's on the city's website. Go back and look at it. I say that because I want to dispel what not many, but a few have said, that this is an issue of 1 or 2 or maybe 3 people. That's not what my email inbox reflects. That's not what my call sheet reflects. It's a lot more than a few people. It's many, many people living in the area that oppose the dog beach for a lot of good and valid reasons, and their repeated complaints to the city is a reaction and being done directly in response to what the 2017 council and mayor sat up here and told residents to do throughout the duration of this experiment. So, in 2017, we have this experiment. We fast forward a couple years, 2020. What happened then? COVID. What happened during COVID? You saw a spike, an absolute spike in dog ownership rates because everybody was home and suddenly had the time to take care of a dog. You also saw a spike in all things outdoor activities. You couldn't buy a boat, and if you could find one, it was a fortune. Lake activity was booming. So we saw a huge surge of dogs and other activity at that park. Good problem to have. It's nice that people are using our parks, but that really has never gone away. So these problems persisted, and in 2023, the council again took up this issue, and that was under my leadership once I had become mayor in 2022. And I wanted to revisit the issue because I was still getting complaints, not from one or two, but from many. I also observed things firsthand. I have spent a lot of time in recent years, and certainly this summer, just observing with no preconceived notions, not trying to find good or bad conduct, just observing. And I can't agree with what many have said when they said, I've never seen any bad conduct, I've never really had an issue. I mean, I've spent a decent amount of time. I haven't spent days on end, but in the handful of hours I spent there, I saw dogs defecating in the water on multiple occasions, dogs not on leash, dogs running amok. So it's not a question of are there issues. We can debate what the level and frequency is, but there are issues that we need to deal with. So in 2023, the council took up this issue again and ultimately decided again to keep this as a designated area for dogs, but attempted again to improve the conditions in hopes of alleviating some of these ongoing concerns. And we implemented putting a fence in, the improved buoys that Mr. Coffey talked about, improved signage, the pet waste stations. As an anecdotal note, early on when we put that pet waste station up, we couldn't seem to keep the inventory of bags in stock because it only takes one person to just take all the bags, and those are the things that a city has to deal with when you're with the best of intentions trying to provide these amenities. So we implemented these several things that, I'll be honest, I was skeptical back in 2023, but you know what? There are a lot of people that like the dog beach and want to continue to use it. And there was some hope that the fence might improve things. So the same nearly decade-old issues continued: the excessive barking, the dog waste, the uncontrolled dogs off leash, and this at the same time that, again, the boat launch and canoe racks and skids and mooring buoys, we're seeing record participation. People are using the park. So I feel like where we're at right now, something's got to give. We've got a very popular park. Is it picnickers? Is it pedestrians? Is it boaters? Is it canoers? Is it sailors? Is it dog owners? So against this historical background, I go back to what my original question was. Is this large concentration of dogs appropriate for this residential area in a heavily used park with limited space and with many other uses, including boat traffic and swimmers? And here's the answer that I've come to. In 2007, yes, I think it's appropriate. In 2017, probably not. It's probably no longer appropriate, but we're probably not at critical mass just yet. In 2023, yes, I think we'd reached a point in 2023 that it was time to close the dog park, and I said as much while recognizing that it was a valued amenity. Today, in 2025, I absolutely think the space is no longer appropriate for a dog park. And as someone who has tracked this from 2017, both complaints as a park commission member, and then in 2023, and then now in 2025, I will say more and more vocal people that never spoke up have had candid conversations and emails exchanges with me that have expressed some very real concerns. So the numbers that have opposed this have really gone up over the last few months, really starting last fall when the council met with the park commission and really grappled with this. So I do support closing the dog beach, and it's not because dog beaches are bad, quite the contrary. They're obviously a great asset, and it's not because I want to deny you folks the enjoyment that came out here and testified in support of it. I support closing the dog beach because what began in 2007 as a nice idea with the intent that it would be see modest neighborhood use appropriate to that small space has now simply outgrown itself. It has become a metro-wide destination, and this very limited area that would be busy even if we didn't have a dog beach simply cannot sustain the current amount of activity that it receives. So it is with regret, because I wish we could accommodate everyone's wishes, everyone's will, but we just simply don't have the space. So like I said in 2017, like I said, in 2023. And what I'll say today, I recognize that this is a tough issue that we have to grapple with, and it's going to disappoint a lot of people, but I give a great deal of deference to the homeowners that have to deal with it 24/7, not just a couple hours on a Saturday, not just a few hours during the week. And I put a lot of deference in what they have to say, and that's ultimately where I've come down. So I would hope that the council would make the difficult decision in the interest of alleviating some of these very real concerns and ultimately close the dog beach. So those are my thoughts. And with that, I will turn it over to the council to discuss what they would like to do and what they would like to direct staff to do for our March 11 meeting. Council? Everybody reserving comment for a couple weeks?
Well,
oh, you don't have to talk. Go ahead,
well,
Councilmember Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we should talk a little. I think it's a way of showing we're listening, for one thing, and so appreciate all the comments, pro and con. I tend to agree with some of your comments. I mean, it's a balance question. A great amenity that is really popular. I mean, we can stipulate that people love the dog beach. We heard a lot of stories tonight. I got a lot of emails on that. People love this amenity. It's unique in the state. It's unique in the state for a reason, because it's super hard to do. It's super hard to do a beach, finding lakeshore property that's available, public, and then being able to manage dogs coming and going, people coming and going. We don't have a parking lot. That's one of the biggest problems. We don't have a parking lot buffer between a neighborhood and an amenity. I think what you said at the end is a deference to homeowners. I think that's what kind of I keep coming back to. The experience of a user saying, I've been there a lot, I never see a problem. That's a valid thing to say, but it's equally valid for people in the neighborhood to say there are problems. And they're not lying, they're not making it up. So that's the balance. How do you balance a really popular public amenity with the property rights in the neighborhood and the people that live there and have to put up with it every day? And it just doesn't seem to be going away, like I said. And I have voted, I think in that history that you talked about, Mr. Mayor, I voted to close it. I think the first time it came up, I voted to keep it open. The last time with the new fencing, spend a little money. And I think if you go back and listen to my speech, I said, I'll do it one more time. I'll give it one more time. I'll vote yes. And let's see if this works. And here we are again. So I'm leaning no. I'd like to hear what other people have to say. And I guess my last question is, Gene has sent a great email and spoke tonight about an alternative location. Have we exhausted alternative locations in the city of White Bear Lake? If we think this is a great amenity. And I just wonder if we've really given that the effort, because we've always sort of just said, well, let's just keep it open. So maybe we haven't exhausted that effort to find another place. If we do, in fact, vote to close this location, would that spur more activity on seriously looking at another location? Now, you start looking at another location, you're going to start spending money. And this group recently has had trouble spending money, and I'm okay with that. But we said no to electric charging vehicle stations because it was too much money, among other reasons. We recently, not in a vote, I don't think, but kind of cautious about extending docks and getting public docks over by Tallies and over by our marina. Because, again, expensive, thousands of dollars. And we kind of said, we talked ourselves out of that expenditure, at least at this moment. So if we're going to come in and say, all right, is this amenity something we're going to spend thousands of dollars on? I don't know if this group can do it or not. I mean, I don't know where I'd come down on that. Maybe I would because of the popularity of this amenity. So I guess that's one of my questions. And maybe we don't answer that tonight. Maybe we answer that next week or in 2 weeks when we come back. I guess it's not quite 2, maybe a little longer than that. But have we exhausted other locations? I know we've talked about some of these other spots. I don't know that the moving down a little bit, I guess south towards the bridge is a great idea. I think all the same problems might still be there. I don't know that you've talked, I think you've answered this question in the past about the lake shore, the beach or the murkiness of it. And they say, well, we'll just add a parking lot. Well, that sounds really hard. I don't even know the details. I'm not sure we even own the land to do a parking lot. How that's not as easy as you think. It's super expensive. So that's really hard. But north of, south of the Ramsey County Beach, or some land that we own? Have we exhausted that piece? Have we exhausted Lakewood Hills, other locations? So maybe that's a conversation we can have again, because we've tried that. I know we've tried that. And if my memory is nothing else works. We've kind of gone down this path. I know you guys have done it from the city. I think the park board has done it too. But maybe we got to revisit that if we in fact close this one. Maybe that really makes it more of an effort. So that's where I'm at tonight.
Would anyone else like to weigh in? Well, I'll just follow up on Councilmember Walsh's comments. I'm not opposed to dog beaches, so I love the idea of doing that. And as much as I've been, like Councilmember Walsh, pretty stingy about wanting to spend money on anything that's not police, fire, roads, all that stuff, I would. I mean, we're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars here. It's certainly an important enough amenity. I would be willing to spend some money if we can find the appropriate location. I will say moving on the other side of the boat launch does nothing, in my opinion. It's the same barking, the same dog poop issues, the same unruly owners. It's not about which side of the boat launch it's on. It's where we put a dog beach in proximity to lots of other alternative uses and homes. And if we can find that place, great. I'm all for it. If we can find a place that isn't a mucky lake bed, because I understand dog owners when they say, we don't want to, that's why we like this area. Well, maybe we can find that place where it is nice and sandy, or we can create that. Let's have those studies for what alternatives are and what it would cost. I have the appetite to do that. I just don't want it in that very, very choked off, confined area, because I think it just doesn't work anymore. So for what that's worth, for if the council ultimately does shut it down, I think we should make a conscious effort to look for alternatives. Is everyone else reserving comment for a couple weeks? Councilmember West.
So I've lived in White Bear Lake for 32 years. I live on the corner of White Bear Avenue and County Road F. If you know that area at all, you know it's loud, you know it's busy. And it has only gotten worse since I have lived there. I built my house there, which means that I had no neighbors to the north. I had one neighbor to the south, and I had a huge green area, which is now like 12 houses. So when I think about this issue and the growing, lots of people, I think about kind of the people that we're talking about, the community and the sharing and the importance of that. I just think we need to be better at getting along and being okay with things that are happening with other people, because we are part of a community. And the other thing is, as a homeowner on a busy street, I have to pay attention to, well, maybe either I have to put up with the noise or I have to do something different with my property. Or I made sure that my kids weren't going out on the front lawn because I wanted to make sure that they were safe and not in traffic. But we put a big fence in our backyard to make sure that we had some private space. And so I'm just I'm curious about what the neighbors are doing to keep their personal space safe. What I'm hearing is, well, this is that problem, and we should be able to kind of do what we want. And it's just a really hard place for me to be, because like I said, my own personal experience is, yep, lots of things are different, and it's a community growth issue. I knew it. I figured it was going to happen. It did. And you know what? I'm okay with it. That's kind of where I'm standing right now.
Okay, Councilmember Edberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there are a number of things that I've thought about and that I weigh. There are some things that I've taken off my list, both through the communications to this point, And there's a couple things that I'm still unclear about in my own mind. I am not seeing this as a public safety issue. I've asked for the data on dog bite reports, on unruly and malicious violent dogs. I'm not seeing data that supports a contention that this is a primary issue at this location. I'm also not swayed by the pooping in the lake issue. If you really want to think about it, I would like you to, I know, you may not want to think about it. We'll start with walleyes, bass, crappies, sunfish, carp, and all the other things that defecate in the lake. And if that turns you off, well, that's one issue. I think a bigger issue is bird flu and the presence of dogs that prevent and reduce the use of this space for ducks, geese, other birds that are carrying what is potentially a very, very serious human disease. We have demonstrated already transmission from avians, birds, to mammals, and to humans. So this is, to me, the health issues of dog poop on the beach is not a public health issue. We've been testing for E. coli, we've been testing for the major diseases that we should be thinking about. This location doesn't have those issues. Other places have them. It tends to be linked to birds. So I'm not seeing a public safety issue engaged. There have been some letters from individuals who have said that the park is diminishing the value of their property, that their property home values have declined. I'm not sure that the data exists to support that either. Evidenced in this very chambers 2.5 months ago at our public truth and taxation hearings, of all the places in the city, places where property values are going up is primarily in lakeshore areas. And it's being driven by other things. It's not the dog beach. If somebody wanted to make the case that my property values are going up, but they're not going up as fast as other places in our greater neighborhood, if you got the data, I'll listen. I'm convincible, but I don't think that case can be made. That wasn't stated here. It was stated in some of the other letters and communications that we received. I am not particularly swayed by the issues related to it's good for the downtown businesses. We walk our dogs and we take them downtown. Fine, that's okay. I recognize that that's a benefit. It doesn't affect my thinking about the value of the park based on the vitality of downtown. What does come to me are a couple of questions. I am still trying to understand why and this is, we don't have quantitative data. It's anecdotal and personal. But I'm looking at the tremendous disparity of experience that I'm hearing. We've had 2 petitions. Frankly, my petition is bigger than your petition argument doesn't hold much water with me either. It's like it's popular, but that's not a deciding factor. The idea that there are undue, unreasonable impositions that are being made to residents is one that I'm trying to balance. And I'm having a difficult time figuring out, so why is one set of folks saying one thing and why is an entirely other, including 100 visits from our own park commission, coming back to us with different observations? Now, it probably could just be human beings are being human beings, okay? It's possible. But the stories are so different that it's causing me to scratch my head, and I don't know what to do with that. The thing that I'm thinking about, and the thing that I am pondering between now and whenever we take action, is the city imposing an undue, unreasonable imposition on nearby neighborhoods and owners. I would note that the neighbors in that area are not of one mind. There are those who signed one petition saying, hey, this is a pain in the backsides, close it. Okay, I get that. There are another, not inconsequential set of numbers who said, hey, we live in the neighborhood. The things that we experience are just part of being in the neighborhood, and we're okay with that. So it's not like it's a uniform rejection by one set of neighbors against another. It's all over the place, and maybe that too is just human beings being human beings. We come from different places with different priorities, different sets of tolerances, whatever, and so we wrestle with that. I thought about, and I'm still open to hearing more about, so what is unique about this location? I was talking to one person out in my ward and said, you know what? I have a park in my backyard. There's a basketball court. It's used constantly. It's frequently used. Pa-boom, 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 pa-boom. All day. Is that an undue imposition on that neighborhood because the park is used for its intended purpose? I don't know. I think about that. I think about neighbors, some of whom are into outdoor automobile refinishing and auto work, power tools, buzzing, cutting, blah, blah, blah. Okay, is that my cup of tea? Yeah, maybe not, but it's their property and they're doing something that's important to them, and that's part of live and let live. I think about other folks who have woodworking in their garages, hearing the saws, the drills, all that kind of stuff. Okay, fine, live and let live. I think about parking and traffic, and that's all over the city. Now, I don't live in the first ward, second ward, so I don't know the specifics of what it's like to have traffic on Lake Avenue, but the folks in my community, in my ward, that talk to me about traffic, speed, etc., we've got it there too. How do we deal with that, and how do we live with lots of cars, even if they're traveling the speed limit? How do we deal with the sound, the noise, the interruptions that come with traffic, parking, etc.? So we've got, and there's a whole bunch of other sound and noise issues, whether it's lawnmowers or cars going by with loud radios or loud stereo systems booming. We've got all of that, and it's all over the city. It's not just on Lake Avenue across from the dog park. How do we think about that and what becomes undue? That's what I need to wrestle with. I'm open to looking at that third alternative, a different location. I'm not inclined to close the beach and then go looking. I want to have that in place as part of the resolution before I would vote to close the beach. But that's just me, and others can take a different position, and I honor that. But I would be inclined to join in the idea of what else might be possible. Does it create just as many issues but in a different location? Okay, that's a distinct, perhaps not unlikely consequence as well. So those are the things that I'm thinking about.
Anyone else have any comments on this time? Councilmember Engstrand.
First off, what kind of basketballs are you dribbling?
I'm not the one that's doing the dribbling, sir.
All right. Well, first of all, I would vote to keep it open, and I'm not going to go through what everybody said. However, if we do vote to close the dog beach, I also want a proposal to close the 7th Street beach. Also, because of screaming kids, and I'm guessing they peed in the water a lot more times than the dogs. So, if we close the dog beach, I want a proposal to close the 7th Street beach also. They can go down to West Park or Ramsey Beach and swim.
Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts? Follow-up comments and questions. Councilmember Edberg. I like your discussion about woodworking, people working on cars, and I'm not necessarily offering a counterpoint, but you said you'd like to understand further, so I have a thought on that, and here's my thought, and why I see this as different. If you have a automotive enthusiast that likes to work on cars in his garage, or a woodworker who likes to work on building, things out of wood and running saws, we have ordinances regarding noise and sound for that discrete one person or his family doing something. We wouldn't, for example, allow that person to violate the residential zoning code and say, I'm going to start an auto body shop in his garage or woodworking. In fact, we don't allow people to run those businesses precisely because the volume of the noise, the volume of the activity isn't appropriate for that area. So that's how I think about this as you draw analogies to other things that bother other residents. I see this as different, and the city does have some responsibility because dog parks are pretty unique. Dog parks next to water are really unique, and dog parks that now tonight we're entertaining removing the leash requirement is literally unheard of, and maybe that would work in a rural area, but we're talking about a residential area. So we're inviting a higher number of participants, so it's not just one person. And that's how I see the distinction with your analogy of, what's different between this and other people. I also look at one of the people that testified said something about I don't know, if you live next to a school or something, you're going to hear noise, or someone said something to that effect. I said this in 2023, and I'll say it again because I think it's relevant. There's a concept in the legal world, tort law, called coming to the nuisance, meaning if you move next to a dog beach, you don't really get to complain because you knew what you were getting yourself into. And I don't mean to make this a question about who got there first, but that is not historically used for dogs. That was never our primary focus. The dog portion of using Mataska to allow dogs to recreate is pretty darn new, 18 years or so. So for many, many decades before that, the people that lived there before it was a dog beach didn't consent to that. The city said, we're going to let people recreate their dogs there, and now we're still dealing with it. And rightfully so, people can complain. So that's a big distinction that I see, and I get it. People claim that they've moved here in part because there's a dog beach. Okay, there's two sides to that. But the people that are making these complaints didn't consent to this, didn't sign up for, they knew they were living at or near a public park, and if they were complaining about the sailboat rigging clanging in the middle of the night, I'd say go pound sand. You move next to the lake. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about dogs barking, dogs defecating, dogs that we have a bunch of dog lovers here, I get it, but there's a whole lot of people that aren't dog lovers or are afraid of dogs. There was a gentleman that testified that he said he had to hold a kid down, or a dog down, because it was running in his yard. So then I asked the question, how many instances of that is enough to say, you know what, we get that it's a beloved park, but we just can't take that risk, or that's too high a price to pay? How many hot dogs have to be eaten off of someone's plate, or hamburgers? Someone laughed when someone testified and said a dog literally took something off my plate or jumped on my lap, and the insinuation I got from the crowd laughing was that somehow that's cute, or it's not a big deal. That's someone's private property, and they have the right to freely enjoy their private property without being bothered by dogs. And the people that are testifying here today, I'm going to assume are good dog owners that aren't these people. I'm not talking to you. And if I had a silver bullet to say, how can I just let you people come to the dog park and not the bad actors, I'm all ears. So let's do it. But those few bad actors can spoil the bunch, and we have these very real issues. So that's why, yeah, I thought about this in 2017. I thought about it, same in 2023, and I think about it today. It's an unsolvable issue. We'll always talk in circles and say it's popular. We'll always talk in circles and say so many people enjoy it, and it's such a great amenity and asset to the community, because it is. But there is very real baggage that comes with it. And after 8 years of going back and forth, and after spending lots and lots of time addressing this, we're never going to be able to solve the barking and the bad actors through fencing, through signage, through waste bags. And I've just come to the conclusion that It's time we just part ways and move on. I feel for the dog owners. It's seen as a takeaway, because it is. But what was a good idea 18 years ago has just become a victim of its own success, and now it's just too populated that it can't be sustained. So, any other thoughts? Or Councilmember Edberg, if you want to respond. I don't know if that helped you think it through a little bit, but maybe I left you with some.
Mayor, you always cause me to think, and that's just fine. That's the job that you're supposed to do, and my job to listen, so I'll just ponder.
I appreciate that. Any other thoughts, comments? Councilmember West.
My only, I appreciate all of the thoughtfulness. I'm wondering, at what point is it the responsibility of the homeowners to do something else with their property to help with some of that? Like, I put up a fence in my backyard, I hang out in my backyard so that people who are coming by with their dogs aren't interfering or aren't, like, you know, if I were in my front yard and there was a dog coming by, then they're not getting, you know, involved with my dogs. Like, it's just something that I do because I realize that it is a possibility. That's my question, is, like, where is that responsibility?
So I just want to stay with that for a second. So it's incumbent upon the homeowner, whether they own a dog or not, whether they love dogs or hate dogs, to say, well, I need to build a fence, perhaps a moat, to stop dogs from coming in my yard. That should be the burden of the resident, because they happen to live in a house that some years later the city decided to allow a high rate of dogs. That just doesn't make any sense. And then also on that note, it is important to remember that, and Mr. Copley can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you can just put a 6-foot privacy fence up along the shoreline going to the lake bed. I mean, there's no solution to that, which is why, from a public policy standpoint, when cities put dog parks in, the city fences the dog park in. They don't say, here's a field, all the homeowners around, put fences around your properties. So that, I mean, I understand your point, but no, the burden should never be on the homeowner to guard against public amenities of the city. I don't follow that line of logic, and I think the burden would be on the city to make those accommodations, or if they can't properly protect the homeowners around from any interference, then the amenity shouldn't exist, which is where we're at, in my opinion. Councilmember Hughes.
Mr. Mayor, you can't put a fence down along the waterfront within, I want to say it's 10 yards of the water, inside the watershed. So they couldn't put a fence down there anyway. Like, we couldn't put the fence, you know, that's why the fence that's down there goes out, but we were given permission from the conservation district, so they can't put a privacy fence in between lots. They'd have to, I don't even know whether or not the conservation would give permission, but they don't.
I thought that you had a fence around your yard. Is that not?
I have yes. Okay, so right. I live across Lake Avenue, and I do. We're talking about homeowners that actually own the waterfront down along the shoreline, right adjacent to the park. So there's the Wydock, and that picture, there's the Wydock, yeah. So, and that's part of what we're talking about, is it's not my yard that's affected. You know, it's not. These guys are out in their own yards with no fences down there with a picnic, literally, because there's no house down there, you know, you can't stop them from coming over. And I would say that's the problem with as you march along in the marina as well, is that without actual fencing along all sides of the dog area, then you do continue to have dogs on the Wydock, which does make it hard for the people that we make pay to utilize that dock. And then they're on the skids where the rowboats are and where those dinghies are, and then down on the launch. So without a fence, there's no And we can't put fences down there either, other than the one we've got. I don't know how many more we could get with permission, but that's along that waterfront area, the watershed doesn't allow it.
Well, in fairness, I mean, I understand your point with that, but even if you could, we've heard multiple people say that there is barking. Maybe it's not all day, every day, but it's enough that it interferes with the enjoyment. So what's next? Well, if you're going to put a privacy fence up, why don't you spend, I don't know, 40, 50, 60, 70 grand to do all the windows in your house with triple pane to soundproof it? I mean, the burden just isn't on the homeowners, in my opinion. That's a slippery slope of saying, well, it's your problem. That's not where the burden. That's not where the burden lies to me. Even if you could, which at least with the fence, you're very limited. Any other thoughts? Okay, do we have a direction, what we would like staff to come back with, if anything? The status quo right now is the park is open. The conditions from last year apply. If we do nothing, which we're free to do, the park, Dog Beach stays open. So.
Well, okay, Mr. Mayor, then for the sake of discussion on March 11th, the vehicle should probably be a motion of a resolution to close the beach, because that would be the affirmative action. If it's a no vote, then that's the status quo. If it's a yes vote, we got to do other things. But otherwise, we don't need to bring it on the agenda. If like you say, status quo is that the beach is open. So. I think the right thing to do is to bring that resolution, debate it, and then make a decision.
Ms. Crawford.
Thank you. Mayor, Councilmember Walsh. Another option, in addition to what you've stated, is the recommendations of the Park Commission. So it's either do nothing, potentially implement recommendations from the Park Commission, which technically is what's in front of you or was part of the discussion, or a resolution closing. So there could be, another option.
Staff could bring both?
I think we could bring two resolutions.
Then we should have them both ready, because
Yeah.
we could pick which one to work on first. And
So I think, unless anyone has any strong objections, I think let's come back at the March 11th meeting with a resolution that says we will continue the operation of the Dog Beach and adopt the recommendations of staff as we've done in 2023, and another resolution that says we're going to close the Dog Beach. And if it's not the will of the council to close the Dog Beach, it just simply will fail for lack of a motion or a second, and it won't even be voted on. But we'll have two items before us.
Mr. Mayor, can we just get, I know we've done this before, but do we have any, should we do it, I don't know if we should do it tonight or maybe wait for March 11th, but some staff work on alternative locations. And I don't want them to work, I don't want to add things to the list of things for staff to do. I think we've already gone down a lot of these roads. Maybe we need to go through them again. If it's not too much, research, I don't want anybody going to do soil samples on beaches, but if we could just have that conversation again for the public and for me, frankly, can we just talk through some of these ideas? I think we've talked them down, but maybe we got to do it one more time, or if that's not too much work.
Yeah, I mean, I'll defer to city staff. I think we've done a lot of work on that. So to the extent we can pull it together in a memo and, talk through what's feasible, even if we've explored it and there's just no other good options. Let's take another look at that. Ms. Crawford, you look like you have something to say.
Thank you. Mayor, we have looked at moving it south in Matoska. I'm not sure that we have really exhausted all of the research along the lake, and that probably it would be up to the city council and the mayor and the direction that you wanted to give, but perhaps that would require some intense public engagement if we were going to kind of open a new park in another location that would take well beyond 2 weeks. But that is direction, that we could get. But I think the only one that we really have looked at, or the Park Commission has looked at in this area on the lake at least, is Matoska Park. We've looked at Lakewood Hills. We've looked at some other kind of stormwater area ponds that just really won't work, but we have not looked at other city-owned locations along the lake outside of Matoska.
I would just suggest that if it's if it's the will of the council that there's a desire to close the dog beach, but you're not willing to do it unless there's an alternative, that's a good reason to do that. I would propose that what's before the council is, after all the back and forth and debates and public hearing, we need to make a decision. This goes along with what you had said, Mr. Edberg. Do we have an issue that necessitates needing to close down this dog park? That's a discrete issue. Yes or no? And then separate from that is, do we still have a desire to have a dog park somewhere? And if so, if the answer is yes, then let's explore it. But to me, I don't see those two as linked. There is either a public policy reason to raise the concerns and complaints after 8 years to the level to say we're going to stop it, and that's the final decision, or not. But simply saying, well, they're a problem, they're enough of a problem to move it, but not really to shut it down, I don't like that middle ground approach. And people can push back and say they disagree, but I don't see those two as linked. I have the appetite to find alternatives. I think we should, but that has no bearing on whether or not these issues rise to a level to say this park in its current form in that current location needs to cease existing as a dog beach. Anyone disagree? Or is their would-be decision to close this location predicated on having an immediate and readily available alternative? Councilmember Edberg.
Yeah, I'm one. I'm not ready to close the beach without knowing whether we have an alternative that's actionable and the time frame and budget to implement that option. So that's not usable to me, but it takes 3 votes to make a decision. Going back to the procedural question for our next meeting, there are multiple options in front of us. I think the core one is, should Dog Beach be closed? And we should have a motion and a second, and if there is, we debate, vote up or down, make that decision first. I'm not really keen on taking up the commission's recommendations at this point. I'd rather focus my energies and thoughts on what's the right approach, and then we can take those others. There's several. I counted at least 4, and there might be, my brain says there's even 5 different approaches, and I'm not sure we can wisely sequence all of those. So my inclination is to say, let's take it one by one, and it may take more than one meeting to get issues 2, 3, 4, and 5 if we have to go there. If the vote is to close, well, then we can do that on the 13th, or on the 11th, rather. So I'm just saying, I'm not seeing the wisdom of multiple resolutions being prepared in advance, because I don't know that we know where that conversation's going.
No, it's a fair point. And our next meeting is an artificial timeline set by us. We had this early enough so that we know there'd be probably going to be some ice on for a little while longer, and a Buick in the lake. So we have some time to maneuver if council wants more. I mean, to me, the pressing timeline is when the dog beach will actually be, when it's ice out and the dogs will actually use the shoreline, and it's not in a couple weeks. So I don't really care if we need more time to gather alternative locations. Mr. Coppy, when realistically, it's just hypothetically, it's the will of the council to say we don't want to continue the operations, and we need to make that decision before someone has the opportunity to think they can recreate their dogs there. What timeline would you say? What date would that be?
Mayor, members of the council, if I could predict when ice out is, I would be able to give you an answer. Typically, when ice goes out, our park staff get down there, get the buoys in as soon as practicable. So as soon as we can, we get down there, we start putting the marina together, docks, buoys, that kind of thing. Not sure what ice out will be this year. Obviously, last year was very early, one of the, I think, the earliest in at least recent history. So it's supposed to be 50 degrees next week. Could be March, could be May. Typically, April timeframe is kind of that magic timeframe. One thing I will caution too is that to locate alternatives, there's a lot of factors that we need to look at from that we can't do with ice on the lake. So really have to look at that once the ice is out, look at vegetation, look at bottom, look at regulatory issues. A lot of what was thrown around was, do we need to make shoreline improvements to make this work? A sandy bottom. Obviously, regulatory hurdles that we would have to get through to even look at that. So, not something that we can do in short term. And like City Manager Crawford said, that public engagement, if we truly move locations out of Matoska Park.
Okay. Well, we heard from one council member that they're not willing to act on just what the recommendations of the commission are. There are other folks. We can punt this down the road a little bit. Does anybody feel the need to bring something to close?
I don't know, Mr. Mayor, we've had trouble on this council with sort of legislating on the fly. I don't think that's that hard. I don't think it's, I've got a couple ideas in my head. If a motion to close it doesn't pass, there are alternative motions that I have in my head that I can simply voice. I can prepare them in advance. It doesn't require staff work. Doesn't require, we can think about these ideas, I think, on the fly. And if we don't want to do it on March 11th, we can delay. We have that power to do that. Say, let's think about this for another couple of weeks, come back to the next meeting. We do have some time. So I don't know that we have to decide tonight like what all the motions are, and we can do some legislating and some talking on the 11th like we planned.
Okay. Well, that's fine with me. But on that note, I want to say to everyone in the audience and the park board who spent a lot of time on this, and I said this last fall, we're going to, at least while I'm sitting in this chair, we're going to bring this up one more time. And if it's the will of the council that Matoska is going to have a dog beach and that's just how it is, I've got no appetite to continue to revisit this over and over again. Continued complaints are fair. Continued improvements are fair. More fencing is fair. But we can't do this every single year. There's a need for finality in whatever direction that is. Conversely, if we close it, I don't want to, be considering reopening it the following year. It's been 18 years that we've had this. We've got these problems. I think it's ripe for closing, and we should close it now. But if that ultimately doesn't prevail on the council, then that's the standing amenity at Matoska. That's my position on that, because I do recognize the strain it has put on not only the Park Commission, but I haven't thanked staff yet for their continued work with this, and they've done a great job, but we just can't constantly fight this battle. It'll continue or it won't, and that'll be that. So on that note, it doesn't matter, what we do in 2 weeks. The conversation is going to continue, and I think one way or another this council one more time is going to make a decision on a vote to close or not in the coming weeks or couple of months prior to the season. And I'm not preordaining that means it's going to close. But historically, with the memo that we have in front of us and a recommendation from the park board, we would have a resolution to that effect and vote up or down. And that, to me, would be the mechanism by which we do that. Because you can amend that to say whatever you want, and we could do that. So, all right. Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure we're done. No more final thoughts on that. Councilmember Walsh.
On the March 11th meeting, will you be taking public testimony?
No. Thank you for bringing that up. This was the opportunity. That doesn't mean people's email boxes aren't open or phone numbers can't be called, but this was the opportunity to speak publicly. I'll speak only for myself. I appreciate the public testimony, and that's important from folks. I don't always respond, especially on an issue like this, because there were just so many emails, but I read all my emails. So if you feel like I didn't get a chance to testify tonight, you can send us an email. Again, I'm speaking only for myself, but I will read it. The message will get through. And I've received many, many emails from residents only to me. All of those got disseminated to the broader council so that we can make an informed decision. And that includes those that are vehemently in support of keeping the dog beach. This is just full disclosure, put all the feedback out. But this is the last public hearing opportunity. we have had it. And it was good, so thank you. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break here for the good of the order until we move on to the next item agenda. Thank you all for coming. I don't know, we'll talk about
I want to make sure that my grandkids go down there and they do fish, but I didn't bring it. I think I was going to put the game on.
And we've got item 6B, public finance policy. Mr. Lindahl. Or Ms. Schimmick. All right. Somebody. I'm blaming Ms. Crawford, who told me to say Mr. Lindahl.
Well, yeah, that's what I was told.
Okay. Whoever's ready to speak on this, please proceed.
Well, since you asked. Oh, sorry.
Mayor, members of council, the item before us, well, that's much louder than I'm used to. The item before us is a continuation of the housing policy discussion that we've been having, and that is to adopt a public financing policy. In addition to establishing a public financing policy, this would be revising an older tax increment financing policy that was adopted in 2015 and a business subsidy policy that was adopted in 2009. Adopting such a policy is an important tool. It allows us as staff to bring forth requests in a standard way to the council when there are requests for public assistance, and it gives the council a standard form with which to evaluate those requests. This particular policy lays out the purposes and authority for granting business assistance, the city's objectives, the principles guiding the city's use of public financial assistance, and other administrative work. Adoption of this policy provides a framework for evaluating requests, but does not create an obligation for council to provide such assistance, and it allows for a case-by-case evaluation. Staff believes the adoption of this policy is in alignment with our 2040 comprehensive plan, the city's housing policy and program priorities, and the 2024 strategic plan. And with that, I will stand for any questions. Staff's recommendation is that council conducts a public hearing on the matter and considers adopting the resolution establishing the public finance policy and amending the existing policies.
Thank you, Ms. Schimmick. At this time, we'll open up.
Mayor, members of the council, I would just add a couple of quick points. First, you may remember, Tracy went by this kind of quickly, but you may remember we had a detailed presentation from Ellers on public financing tools in general back in April. And then back, I believe, at your work session in November, is when we presented you the draft of this policy, and we went through kind of each section and discussed it and had conversation about that. And so really what is before you tonight is the original policy that the council had time to look at that work session. And it's the same as that night, and really what was staff's intention tonight was really just to bring you what we've already gone over in a work session, and look for to move this forward. And I would just also underline what Tracy mentioned is what's before you is a framework for reviewing and discussing and considering applications, and really that's it. And the council can adopt this policy and amend it at any time. So again, with that, we'd take questions.
A quick follow-up to that. If memory serves me, there's a whole lot of maze in here. So this is effectively adopting a toolbox with no obligation to use any one particular tool, but we're saying these are the ones that we want to put at our disposal. Is that a fair analogy?
Mayor, members of the council, yes.
Okay. At this time, I'll open it up to a public hearing to anyone who would like to speak on this issue. The public hearing is now open. Anybody going once, going twice? The public hearing is now closed. All right, we'll bring it back to the council. Council, questions for staff, or what would we like to do? Councilmember Edberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 items just to the council. In a few moments after we adjourn the council meeting, we're going to take up this exact same policy as the HRA. So if there's any unique contributions, I suppose you can save them, or we can all hash it out here and shorten the HRA meeting. So just the heads up there. Staff, so I appreciated the conversations that we've had and the draft policies that you brought to us. I think they almost unanimously made sense to me. There might be some tweakings around the edges, but are there is there anything in these policies that is remarkably different from the drafts that you presented to us prior? Most of the language rang clear enough that it's like, I've read this before, I know we've talked about it, but it's several pages long, and so I'm looking for the fine print answer. Is there anything new that, or substantially refined from what we first discussed?
Mayor, members of council, it is largely the same based on the direction we took from council from the work session. There was a section that struck consideration of providing public assistance towards retail uses.
Okay, I remember that conversation. Thank you.
Councilmember Walsh.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A motion would be in order to approve the, is there a resolution in front of us? I'm not really.
That's correct.
Yeah, resolution in front of us. I'll move that, and I have a comment on it.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion, a second. Further discussion.
Well, just
Walsh.
jogging my memory, the impetus for this or the business reason to do this, and you correct me if I'm wrong again, I'll characterize it and you say I'm right or wrong, but this is a communication document. This is a document that communicates to the public and developers and people that may want to do things in our city, what things might be available. And one of the goals was to limit or lower staff time on phone calls, trying to explain, what things may or may not be in a toolbox. Not obliging us to do anything, but I see this as a communication document. And if I'm just trying to remember this, because it was November, I guess, it seems like a long time ago. Is it my memory right?
Mayor, members of council, yes, your memory serves you correct. It just gives us a tool with which to communicate with developers and other interested parties. It establishes a uniform way of considering these requests, and it gives us a tool that we don't currently really have as staff.
And will there be some staff time savings here? I mean, do you think that's really like less time on the phone, or was there a benefit here, you think?
Yes, I think when those conversations come up, we have a clear answer. Does it fit into this? Does it not? If it fits into this, we'll bring it forward to council for their consideration. If it doesn't, we don't feel like it's worth bringing to council.
Thank you.
Councilmember Edberg.
I'd like to follow on that, on Member Walsh's comment. So, Ms. Shimmick, so it's a toolbox, it's a screening device. If an applicant wants to, if you say, that really doesn't fit, or we don't think it fits, but the applicant wants to push that one level up the chain, is that permitted, or what's staff's role in interpreting vis-a-vis a take it, leave it, this is your best offer, whatever? How should we think about this screen in that context?
Mayor, members of council, you may or may not recall, but as a part of adopting the fee schedule for 2025, it included escrow for the considerations for public finance, because there's an analysis required that we would outsource to work with our public financial advisors. And so, in addition, if somebody was really pushing the issue and wanted to bring it before council, for lack of a better saying, they would have to put their money where their mouth is. And that's another part of this tool, is that it's not just anybody who's casting a wide net, it's people who are seriously interested and have what they believe to be a viable project and a viable request.
Thank you.
City Attorney Mr. Anderson had a comment that he wanted to make.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor and Council. I agree with everything so far that's been said. I would just add, too, that in order to even be able to grant business subsidies, the city and the HRA have to adopt a set of criteria, minimum requirements that somebody would, or an entity would need to meet before they can even get their foot in the door. So this checks that box as well. You can't develop that criteria on a case-by-case basis under the statute. You have to have that policy in place beforehand. So in addition to everything else, that's an important reason why we're here tonight.
Oh, thank you. That's very helpful. Okay, any further discussion on this? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the resolution and the public financing policy, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. The resolution passes. All right, item 7, unfinished business, nothing scheduled. Item 8, new business, nothing scheduled. Item 9, discussion, nothing scheduled. Item 10, communications from the city manager. Ms. Crawford.
I will spare you tonight.
All right, thank you. Seeing no questions from Ms. Crawford, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.